It's 10:40, a little earlier than yesterday, but not as early as I'd have liked. Trying to get myself into a work habit again. It's been kind of one of those things where I've been trying to get so many things done in the morning and do things, but I'm not actually doing like work on here. I'm doing LinkedIn, doing my workout, doing resume stuff, doing planning. I guess it's all kind of work, but at the same time, it's not like I'm on that focus. Now, one of the things I need to do now is to start focusing on actually applying some of my work. Now, it's not that I'm done with the Azure, by the way. I will be doing that. I'm on course 3 now. I finished the initial videos, finished most of module 1 because it was mostly videos and a couple of quizzes. There's one exercise before it completes, and I'll try and do that a little bit later today. But here's what I got to do. I got to actually start using some stuff. Now, one of the things I want to try and do is learn Blazor. But I also want to continue to focus on my React. Now, they're two competing technologies, right? Because they're kind of doing the same thing. Blazor's based on C#, and React is based on, well, JavaScript. And Angular is kind of like Java's types. It's TypeScript, but TypeScript is based on JavaScript, right? It's just like more type focused. Ultimately, I want to try to do both. Now, I was thinking of side-by-side development. I want to try a couple things I want to do. One is I have this idea for a site that I would like to create, a ladder site, a site where people can come in and put in their their basic information, just name and whatever. And then it would eventually have things like a payability of something, you can take in payments to be part of the ladder. But what the ladder's purpose is I want to make it like a tennis ladder, for example. It doesn't have to be tennis, it could be any sport or anything. It's just a ladder site. And I want to be able to have it allow people to have a setup where people can come in, join, and then when they compete against said person, so you have to have some communication things. Maybe you have to have everybody has an email, everybody maybe has a text message option. So you have some way that they can come in and challenge you, and then you receive the challenge and you decide if you want to accept the challenge. And the challenge would be, if you're higher ranked than them, they get to move up and they would jump over and pass you if they're within a certain range. Have some things in mind of what it is I'm trying to accomplish. You can't have a person who just joins the ladder at number 60 and then you're number 1 and they beat number 1. They can't do that. The most you can move up is 10 spaces. But if you're within 10, you can jump ahead of them. So you're able to move up, and so everybody's shuffling and going through, and of course if you're winning all the time, you're sitting at the top. But ultimately there might be some jockeying in positions. Now, you don't want to keep falling, but remember, a person who loses only falls back 1 space. You can never fall back more than 1 space. Even if you lose to somebody 10 behind you, you're only going to fall back 1 space. They jump ahead of you, you move back, and everybody shifts. But that's kind of what my goal is. Now, it's a logical app, but it's also going to have a front end, and that's kind of what I want to do first. First thing I'll have to do is create a site. Welcome to my ladder, or to the ultimate ladder, or whatever. Let's do it. Let's see what I can do. Now, I don't know Blazor, so what this means is I'm gonna have to learn Blazor as I go. I barely know React. So this is all gonna be new. I may even have to start with a couple of YouTube videos just to get me ball rolling. So I'm gonna do a little bit of both, and we're gonna see how this goes. Now, ultimately, it's going to be slow going at first. Get a couple hours in, 2-3 hours, just kind of watch things develop and see where it goes. Hopefully I can get something where I'm starting to make some progress. First things first, what am I going to develop in? Well, I thought about doing them both in VS Code. Oh, well, nice. Neither one of them worked. I tried to update my tags, but it did not. Let's go see if I can fix that quick. Got to try to fix my tags, and because they're a little off. Trying to figure out. It does say I'm streaming. Everything's going good there. The title's there. I don't know why it did not work. Huh. Well, Twitch's API is not allowing me to connect at the moment. Even though, according to Restream, I am attached to the site. So it's not that it's not working. It's just not allowing me to update the tags for some reason. So I guess I'll have to come back and do that later. Whatever. There was an error connecting to Twitch's API. So Twitch broke their API. Twitch turned off their API. Okay, let's get going. First things first. Now I'm going to do a side-by-side development. So I could do 2 instances of code. I could do 2 instances of Visual Studio. But if I'm doing React, I'm probably going to use code. So do I want to use VS Code? VS Code is free, right? So I don't know how that works. If I learn Visual Studio, I like Visual Studio. I like the way Visual Studio ties into everything. It just seems to be pretty nice for that purpose. Although I haven't done a lot of checking in with GitHub. So you know what? Let's do both. I know this is going to probably be a pain on my system. But let's go here. We're going to go new window. So I need to create a new React application. And I'm already rusty. I'm telling you, this is why I want to do this, because I only did React. I did a class. It took me about a week and a half. Did an advanced online class or a React class. It was just introductory. Got me going. I'm going to be using Next.js, which is a Next.js with React. Okay, let's do that. And then I am going to use, I'm wondering if my Visual Studio license is even good. I think I have Developer, though, which is just like a free version of Visual Studio. But my thought is, if I'm doing Visual Studio and React, I'll get kind of a good feel for both. Everybody's got their own thing, right? So I'm going to create a new project. See, the thing is, see how nice it is? It's got this nice UI for creating this one Visual Studio so much. I don't want an XUnit project. I don't need Azure functions right now. I am going to do this, attach this to Azure, probably both of them, just because I think that's where I want to also have my a Blazor web app. That's what we want right there. Project template, creating a Blazor web app that supports both server-side rendering and client interactivity. The template can be used for web apps with rich dynamic user interfaces. Project template for creating a Blazor server app that runs server-side inside an ASP.NET Core app and handles user interactions over a Signal-R connection. This template can be used for web apps with rich dynamic user interfaces. I probably have to do both, right? A Blazor server app and a web app. That's what I'm guessing. We'll start with the web app. And we were going to call this the ultimate let's see, ultimate local ladder? No, ultimate neighborhood ladder. Because really that's what you're right. You're competing against people in your neighborhood. So we'll call it the ultimate neighborhood ladder. Place solution and project in the same directory. I don't like this. I don't want it going there. That's dumb. I don't even like that location. We'll put it in my Git repos because ultimately that's where I'm going to actually be sending everything. Solution name. Well, let's call this UN. Oh, I want the solution to be a different name though. The solution is like the ultimate neighborhood ladder. Okay, I see. UNL web UI. And we're gonna call this one U or ultimate neighborhood ladder. UNL web UI. Okay, so yeah, so the solution is going to be the whole thing. I'm going to call this UNL web UI project because there's going to be other parts, server, maybe even some APIs, some things to go in there. So it's going to be a lot of pieces in this solution. So I don't want to necessarily call all of them the ultimate neighborhood ladder. They're all going to have different parts. Like one might be the UNL data API or something like that. So we'll do both. Now I got to do, each part is going to be similar. So we're going to have some, I'm going to try and do both side by side. I'll design one, a page or one piece, and then I'll go over and try and do the other one. And this is going to have my mind going back and forth on two things. It's going to be complicated because I don't know what I'm doing, but hey, let's see how it goes. All right, so authentication type. I do want to have authentication in here. Authentication type. Individual accounts. Is that a thing? What is it? Let's go see what this says here. Oh, it's got a help thing, but apparently it doesn't work. It doesn't do anything. Can you just talk? The authentication method to be used in the application. Yeah, we'll say individual accounts because we do want that. Interactive render mode. Choose which interactive render mode to use for interactive components. Server. Interactive render mode. None. Server, WebAssembly, auto, server, and WebAssembly. I should probably look that up. Let's go look it up. That's part of my learning, right? What's the difference between WebAssembly versus server? First thing I gotta learn. Maybe I should put this in my notes. Trying to understand the difference between different hosting models. From what I read, I understand Blazor server-side and Blazor WebAssembly hosted to have server-side code. Both use Signal R to communicate with the client. So what is the difference between them? There's only one project with a data folder. The link shows the difference between code runs on the client. Server means the code runs on the ASP.NET server. A WASM client can be placed on a static file server. There's no requirements to use ASP.NET. So does that mean ASP.NET host deploys the client code to the device on initial load? Primary difference is what your .NET code is running. With Blazor Server, it's 100% server-side. With a hosted Blazor WASM application, .NET code is running on both the server and on the client, though the server can run any other language or framework you want to. True, but it looks different. The .NET runtime is 100% server-side in Blazor Server application. A framework JS app library is used for client to communicate with the server, but at the end of the day, you are getting one .NET application. With Blazor WASM, your client is running separate .NET runtime in your browser. In addition to the client WASM, the hosted model generates a .NET Web API server project. However, you could use any backend technology to serve and enhance your client application because your client is server technology agnostic. Not necessarily. Blazor Server needs Signal R to continuously communicate and update the client, but Blazor WASM is more flexible. Again, Blazor WASM is agnostic. towards your server side. The hosted model generates the server side for you, but you could technically use whatever you want. Blazor WebAssembly application runs wholly on the client. There is no SignalR connection to the server. Check the server program file. The server is simply the hosted program for the loaded page in Wasm code and provides any API controllers that the application uses. It's a standard .NET Core web application. Any API calls to third parties go directly from the browser running the WebAssembly application to the third-party URLs. See the gist I wrote for another similar Stack Overflow question that I now can't find. It describes what the various bits in the WebAssembly hosted templates. Huh. Okay, so now I'm unclear. I thought it was server. Let's look at the Microsoft Learn. Let's see what Microsoft Learn says. Core Blazor hosting, Blazor server. Let's see. In traditional server rendered app, opening the same app in multiple browser screens typically doesn't translate into additional resource demands on the server. For the Blazor server hosted model, each browser screen requires a separate circuit and separate instances of server managed component state. Blazor considers closing a browser tab or navigating to an external URL a graceful termination. In the event of graceful termination, the circuit and associated resources are immediately released. The client may also disconnect non-graceful, for instance, due to network interruption. Blazor server stores disconnect circuits for a configurable interval to allow the client to reconnect. On the Blazor script establishes a SignalR connection. The Blazor server hosted model offers several benefits. Download size is smaller. The app takes full advantage of server capabilities, including the use of .NET Core APIs. .NET Core on the server is used to run the app, so existing .NET tooling such as debugging works as expected. Thin clients are supported. For example, Blazor server works with browsers that don't support WebAssembly and on resource-constrained devices. The app's .NET C# code base, including the app's component code, isn't served to clients. The Blazor server host model has the following limitations. Higher latency usually exists. Every user interaction involves the network hop. That makes sense because you're doing everything on the server. There's no offline support. If the client connection fails, interactivity fails. Scaling apps with many users requires server resources to handle multiple client connections and client state. An ASP.NET Core server is required to serve the app. Serverless deployment scenarios aren't possible, such as serving the app from a content delivery network. We recommend using the SignalR service for apps that adopt the Blazor server hosting model. The server allows for scaling up a Blazor server app to a larger number of concurrent SignalR connections. All right, WebAssembly. The Blazor WebAssembly hosted model runs components client side in the browser on the web. There are dependencies in the .NET runtime. Blazor apps enable client asset activity. When an app is created, the app is called standalone Blazor WebAssembly app. When a standalone Blazor WebAssembly app uses a backend ASP.NET Core app to serve its files, the app is called a hosted Blazor WebAssembly app. Using hosted Blazor WebAssembly, you get a full stack web development experience with .NET, including the ability to share code between the client and the server app, support for pre-rendering, and interaction with MVC and Razor pages. A hosted client app can interact with its back-end server app over the network using a variety of messaging frameworks and protocols, such as Web API, SignalR, and gRPC Web. The Blazor WebAssembly app, built as a progressive web app, uses modern browser APIs to enable many of the capabilities of native client apps, such as working offline, running in its own app window, launching from the host's operating system, receiving push notifications, and automatically updating the background. The Blazor script handles downloading the .NET runtime Razor components and the components dependencies, initialization of the runtime. This is all the beginning. It's going to be interesting to see as I finally start having things appear. I'm hoping to have some basic stuff appearing today, but we'll see. I don't know. get that basic application running, right? Which diminishes user experience. A large app takes a relatively long time to download to a browser, which diminishes user experience. Blazor WebAssembly optimizes payload size to reduce download times. Unused code stripped out of the application. HTTP responses are compressed. The Blazor WebAssembly hosted model offers several benefits. For standalone Blazor WebAssembly apps, there's no .NET server-side dependency after the app is downloaded from the server, so the app remains functional if the server goes down. Client resources and capabilities are fully leveraged. Work is offloaded from the server to the client. For standalone Blazor WebAssembly apps, an ASP.NET Core web server isn't required to host the app. Serverless deployment scenarios are possible, such as serving the app from a content delivery node. The Blazor WebAssembly hosted model has the following limitations. Tracing components are restricted to the capabilities of the browser. Capable client hardware and software, for example, WebAssembly support is required. Download size is larger and components take longer to load. Code sent to the client can't be protected from inspection tampering by users. The .NET Intermediate Language interpreter includes partial. I'm leaning towards server. I mean, I thought WebAssembly might be the best, but I'm not sure how does it work offline? I mean, I guess how does that work offline? It's like, if the server's offline, you might be able to do some basic browsing, but how are you going to like interact with the website? Server's got to provide you your stuff. So I mean, the server goes offline, you're really not working offline, right? I mean, you're not going to be able to function if your server's gone. Like, how do you pull data? It's not going to. It might download a page's worth of data, the stuff you need for that page to run. But what if you browse somewhere else? So you're downloading every piece of data that your website can possibly show. And what if they want to pass data back? They have to enter something. It's not going to save if there's no server. Actually, I'm just saying, I don't know how you actually run without the server. Performance improves at the experience of larger app size. For more information, see ASP.NET Core, Blazor WebAssembly build tools. Blazor Hybrid. Is that a thing? Blazor can also be used to build native client apps using a hybrid approach. Hybrid apps are native apps that leverage web technologies for their functionality. In a Blazor hybrid app, Razor components run directly in the native app, not on WebAssembly, along with any other .NET code and render web UI based on HTML and CSS to an embedded web view control through a local interrupt channel. It'd be cool if ultimately I can even do if this thing actually gets some traction, I actually start making some progress. Maybe I start doing a phone app, because people are going to want to be able to do their browsing, their challenges and stuff on a phone app. That'd be cool. It don't have to. I mean, it's all going to be web based, but it's just a thought, something to work on. Yeah, here we go. How do you choose? How do you choose, man? Components are set by render mode, either at compile time or runtime, which is described with examples. The following table shows the primary considerations for setting the render mode to determine a component's hosting model. For standalone Blazor WebAssembly apps, all of the app components are rendered on the client with the Blazor WebAssembly hosting model. Blazor hybrid apps include .NET MAUI, WPF, and Windows Forms framework apps. I doubt I'll do a hybrid, but because I think I want to do. I'm leaning towards run apps offline once downloaded. Static site hosting. See, I think that's the thing. If it's a static height, if you're not site, like you're just got data out, I don't know if there's any need to, like if there's no dynamic stuff on there. I want to do dynamic stuff. You can't run offline. Static site hosting. Why can't you do static site hosting? Offloads processing to clients. Offloads processing to clients. Okay. Full access to native client capabilities. Blazor WebAssembly and hybrid apps can use server server-based APIs to access server network resources and access private and secure app code. Blazor WebAssembly only reaches near native performance with ahead of time compilation. After you choose the app's hosting model, you can generate a Blazor server or Blazor WebAssembly app from a Blazor project template. For more information, to create a Blazor hybrid app. See, kind of what I want to do is actually use web APIs. And it does say WebAssembly. You can use server-based APIs to access server network resources. That's what I'm thinking about doing. Complete .NET API compatibility. Components rendered for the Blazor server hosting model and Blazor hybrid apps have complete .NET API compatibility, which components rendered for Blazor WebAssembly are limited to a subset of .NET APIs. When an app's specification requires one or more .NET APIs that are unavailable to WebAssembly rendered components, then choose to render components for Blazor server or user Blazor hybrid. And choose to render components for Blazor server or user Blazor hybrid. There's a lot of information here. Near native execution speed, app code secure and private on the privacy on render the Blazor server hosted model. Components rendering using the Blazor WebAssembly or Blazor hybrid. Can use server-based APIs. Run apps offline once downloaded. Static site hosting. Static site hosting is possible with standalone Blazor WebAssembly apps because they're downloaded to clients as a set of static files. Standalone Blazor WebAssembly apps don't require a server to execute server-side code in order to download and run, and can be delivered in. Although Blazor hybrid apps are compiled into one or more self-contained deployment assets, the assets are usually provided to clients through a third-party app store. If static hosting is an app requirement, select standalone Blazor WebAssembly. Huh. I'm gonna go with server. I think server is the route for me here. I kind of thought I did go with web. Wait, individual accounts, server. Oh yeah, I'm gonna go with server versus WebAssembly. Auto server and WebAssembly. Is that both? What if I do that? Auto server and WebAssembly. Let's do both. Because I think, kind of a hybrid approach. Include sample pages. Sure, let's go ahead and include sample pages. Do not use top-level statements. I don't even know what that means. Whether to generate an explicit program class and main method instead of top-level statements. Enlist in .NET Aspire orchestration. I don't even know what that is either. I don't think I want that. Do not use top-level statements. Whether to generate an explicit program class and main method instead of top-level statements. I don't know, what are top-level statements? Top-level statements. This is just a C# thing, but at least it'll clarify in my head what the heck they're talking about. You'll need to set up your machine to run .NET 6. The tutorial assumes you're familiar with C# and .NET. I just want an explanation of what they are. I know what C# is. Entry point, starting. Build a magic .NET answer machine. Top. Explore ideas using top-level statements to build code as you learn. The C-sharp templates for .NET 6 use top-level statements. Your application may not match the code in this article if you've already upgraded to the .NET 6. For more information, see this article. This new C-sharp templates generate top-level statements. Starting with .NET 6, the project template for new C-sharp console apps generates the following code in the program CS file. The new output uses recent C-sharp features that simplify the code you need to write for a program. In the preceding code, the actual namespace depends on the project name. These two forms represent the same program. Both are valid with C# 10. When you use the newer version, you only need to write the body of the main method. The compiler generates a program class with an entry point method and places all your top-level statements in that method. The name of the generated method isn't main, it's an implementation detail that your code can't reference directly. You don't need to include the other program elements. The compiler generates them for you. You need to learn more about the code. You don't need to include the other program elements. The compiler generates them for you. You can learn more about the code the compiler generates when you use the top-level statements in the article on top-level statements in the C# Guides Fundamental section. You have two options to work with tutorials that aren't updated. Interesting. I'm going to use top-level statements. Sounds like that's the new fancy way to go, so we'll do that. Why go with the old stuff, man? Why would I do that? Okay. What do we got? We got .NET Core loaded here. And, you know, I additionally, even though I'm a C# developer, framework. That's my skill set, man. Stopped at framework 8, I think it was. Now we're at .NET 8. Which is actually .NET Core 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then a merge. Actually, was it merged at 8? I think it was merged at 8. Framework and Core became 1 at 8. I think it was at 8, which is the recent one. So now, if you know Framework, great. If you know Core, great. But they're both one of the same. But you have to kind of know Core to know that you fully know everything that Core is now. So .NET that's why it's called .NET 8 now, not .NET Framework or .NET Core. It's all the same. But if you're using .NET Core prior to the latest versions, it's different. They're two different things. I have never actually learned the difference. I should probably study the difference between .NET Framework versus Core. Let's see, .NET Framework, .NET Core. There we go. See, they have a shared API, but they're slightly different. Microsoft maintains both runtimes. Developers use the .NET Framework to create Windows desktop and server-based applications. This includes ASP.NET, blah, 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 C# is not. When to use .NET Core. A cross-platform open-source framework, .NET Core is best when developing applications on any platform. .NET Core is used for cloud applications or refactoring large enterprise applications. I don't know what they're actually saying. I mean, they say when to use one. But other than performance and what they do, what is the difference? That's the thing. What is it that makes it different? .NET Core does not have some of the .NET features nor support for all libraries and extensions. As such, you may encounter a few situations. Windows Forms and WPF applications are not supported. Most feasibly, it is already used. You're using third-party libraries or NuGet packages not available in .NET Core. You're using technologies not yet available in .NET Core. So a lot of this stuff actually is available. I think this article is old. It says March 2024. Connect to the cloud. Learn your IDE. See your C# productivity guide, writer code. Learn about the .NET platform. Create your first application and extend it to the cloud. ASP.NET Core application documentation. Let's open that. I'm going to open it up. Here. And then we'll go .NET application architecture. This is just information as it is. I probably don't even need this. What's new? Visual Studio has been updated to 17.10. Okay. All right, well, let's create it. We have our project. Let's go here. I don't need this out here. Why is this? We'll close that for now. And we'll go to solution. All right, here we go. We've got our web client, and we got our connected services, and that's it. It gave us two. Our UNL Web UI, UNL Web UI client. I don't know what the difference is. Why did one call client and then one call? Yeah, this is all going to be fun because I have no idea what I'm doing. I really probably should. This is where I should probably go do my YouTube video on Blazor. Yeah. All right. Time to go see YouTube. All right, Blazor. What do you got for me, people? What are you going to teach me about Blazor? How to create Blazor app in Visual Studio 2020. Oh, that's probably not the easiest thing. Let's see. Blazor tutorial for beginners. Sounds like me. 4 years ago. Oh, is there like a Blazor tutorial for beginners? More current?
Schedule repairs and access roadside assistance right through your app. Or you could take your chances somewhere else. Get a quote.
Anybody do anything this year? Here we go. Intro Blazor .NET 8. Here we go.
Hello, I am Ben. In .NET 8, Blazor has become a full-featured web framework that is modular and adaptable to your needs over time. In this video, we're going to be looking at how Blazor works now and how to utilize server-side rendering mode, stream rendering, Blazor server components, Blazor WebAssembly components, and components that transition automatically from server to WebAssembly using auto mode. That's a lot. Now, before we dive in, I want to share a couple of things.
How long is this thing?
First, if you're interested in
46
improving your
minutes.
C# skills, be sure to subscribe to this channel.
I'm gonna try to go through and build my app while he's telling me how to build an app. So I'm gonna try to learn all the. I'm gonna try and do it as I go. Be right back. Quick bio break here. Just a minute. Before I get too involved. Okay. So I'm back. Where was I? Well, for one, I gotta respond here to the text message. Sorry. Okay, so I'm watching this. I'm going to pause it a lot, hopefully to actually do stuff.
Library full of other C# topics as well, which will come with that update. So we're going to choose the Blazor web app project.
Perfect. That's what I did.
This is the new
So I'm already there.
single project for everything. It has SSR, it has stream rendering, it has server, it has WebAssembly, it has auto. So it's all in here. Let's choose Blazor web app. Or call this Intro to Blazor. And the source code is available. If you go down to the description, there's a link. You can download the source code. What's going to do is going to ask you for an email address. It will email you a copy of the source code. So Intro to Blazor app. Hit next. And the framework is .NET 8. Now, yours won't say preview. Mine says preview because it's not yet out. But we're going to choose no authentication type for now. We're going to leave that for a separate video. Yes to HTTPS. The interactivity mode. This is where you say, hey, this is the kind of stuff I want. Now, if you say just server, what that's going to do is it's going to have just Blazor server components, which means you won't be equipped for WebAssembly or auto. If we choose WebAssembly, we will be equipped for just WebAssembly, and auto you have both. I would encourage you that if you're looking for any interactivity at all, just put auto. Now, there is a bit of a downside in doing that, in that it's going to create two projects instead of one. If you want just one project really simple, and you don't ever want WebAssembly, then you can just choose server. That gives you just one project. But the two projects aren't that difficult to navigate, and this is where you can have that flexibility to expand your app over time to include.
Let's see how good I am. Tim Corey is at teaching me Blazor.
So we're going to choose that. This does not mean that your application will always be server or WebAssembly. You don't have to have either of those things in order to get your web application off the ground. This just prepares you and puts the scaffolding in place for server and WebAssembly. So just want to make sure we're clear on that. Interactivity location. You have per page or component or global. This is where you're going to
Interestingly
choose,
enough, that
do
option
I
wasn't on
want
mine.
to set a global setting for server or
I also had more
WebAssembly
options down
or
here.
auto. And my suggestion is to say no. You want it per page or component. You want every page to specify how it's going to render. And the benefit there is that by default, if you don't specify something, it will get rendered with server-side rendering, meaning you will have all the speed in the world. It'll be very, very fast, it'll be very, very efficient, and you won't have any overhead of an open connection with server or with the downloading of the source code like WebAssembly. So that way you get to choose, I want to add some overhead in order to have more interactivity.
So these options aren't
that's why
on
I
the
prefer
latest
to do it.
version of Visual
We're going
Studio.
to include sample pages, and that's
sample
because
pages does
this will,
exist,
give us the
and
best
so does
view
top
of
level
how
statement,
this
but
works.
there's actually a
We're not
third
deep
option here
into
too.
code today necessarily. So this will give us a starting point rather than trying to write the code ourselves. And then this checkbox, I want to leave unchecked. So this checkbox is a little confusing. It says do not use top level statements, and that's unchecked. So we're going to use top level statements, which they have been a thing since .NET 6. I would encourage you to leave this box unchecked so that you use the current and modern way of doing things. But if you really, really, really want top level
Modern way, it's the way to go, man.
way, then check the box. Hit create. And like I said,
The only time you wouldn't
for
want to
us
go with the
two
modern
different
way, in my
projects.
opinion, the only time you wouldn't want to go with the modern way is if you're working on something legacy. Your company doesn't do it that way. That's just their way. They still got all their other code does it one way, and you're trying to build something for that. and familiarity with the developers that you have on site. If you're doing something new, do the newest if you can. Learn the right way, learn the newest way, because that's where you're headed, right? You want to have your knowledge be as up to date as possible. You want to be on the bleeding edge of knowledge for that item if possible.
So we can close out of the initial pages. And here we have Intro to Blazor and Intro to Blazor.client. So what's the difference here? Well, Intro to Blazor, this is where all of our server-side code lives, and all of our server-side or Blazor server.
So this is, I should probably rename these, or rename my app, because this is, I didn't know that this was going to do it. So I should just call UNL Web. I am. I'm going to change this to UNL Web. Just take the UI off. And just because I don't want any confusion. Client is front end, which is UI, right? And then UNL Web is server. But still, the project is the ultimate neighborhood ladder. But we're going to, we'll go from there.
Server components will live. So if we look under components, we'll see here that under pages, we have the home page and we have the weather page. So notice the weather page has code in here. We're going to run code against this, but it is not running with Blazor Server or Blazor WebAssembly. Since that is true, we can put this on the server side. That way, this code down here will never go to the client. The client will never see the C# code. And that's not true for Blazor WebAssembly projects. WebAssembly projects send the C# code, granted in a DLL, but they send that C# code down to the client, and the client could read that code directly. So that's true of all client-side, fully client-side project types. You know, Angular, React, they use fully client-side code, which means you can read the raw JavaScript. Yes, you can try obfuscation, you can try minification, but the reality is you can reverse those very, very easily. So you're always going to put your actual source code.
So, but basically they're saying if you want your stuff to be a little, what do you call it, proprietary, you know, you're creating a pretty cool app. You don't want anybody to see it because you want them to steal it and go take off and do it themselves. Then you would probably not do a lot of website stuff. You'd want to do server side, so it gets fully compiled and it's not easily read on the client side, because it won't be available. They're just going to see blah, this is what you got. It's just going to be the generic website stuff, the output. That's all you get
on the client if the client's running fully client side. So just note that. But in this case, we're in the server project, and the server project content does not go to the client. So the home page, notice no specification for what type it is. So this is going to be a server-side rendered page. So everything here is server-side rendered or is Blazor Server if it specifies it's Blazor Server. Now, in the client, we have pages, and there we have the counter. We're familiar with the counter. If you're familiar with the components from a normal Blazor project, Blazor Server or Blazor WebAssembly, they both came to the counter component as a demo. We still have that, but it's in the client project. And the reason it's in the client project is because it requires some client-side interactivity. And it's not just Blazor Server, it's Blazor, in this case, Auto. So we have this attribute up here that says Render Mode Interactive Auto. This is telling the Blazor system that this component will render.
It's kind of interesting. The way this builds, you can see even in the current version of Visual Studio, things have already changed some. I mean, minorly, but you can see that when this built his page out, he's got it in square brackets. It doesn't show it. This one doesn't do that. And that says Render Mode Interactive Auto. It's an attribute, Render Mode Interactive Auto. Here it just says Render Mode Interactive Auto. It's not an attribute anymore. So you can see that even now, this is just 7 months later from what they did on theirs, this is already different That's and this. I did the exact same thing he did. So it's pretty much. I mean, you can see a lot of the stuff is the same. We still got the. I got page title. He's got page title. The counter's the same. A lot of this stuff is the same, but the declarations at the top are different. So they changed slightly.
These are server to start, and then in the background it will download the source code, and then the next run it will run Blazor WebAssembly. So this way we can have our component that changes over time, but because it does change over time to WebAssembly, we can't have that in the main project because of the fact that it will download the source code to the client, and so that goes in the client project. Okay, so let's just run this real quick.
Sure.
I want to show you, first of all, it seems very, very similar to what you already have seen with Blazor server for the, or Blazor WebAssembly for the demos, but at the same time, it is different. So let's see how it's different once it launches. Okay, let's load the page up here, and this looks a lot like a.
Okay, well, there's the thing. It's already got it. It's already got compile errors. What'd I do? I didn't do nothing. I didn't even change anything. No. Let's see what the errors are. Maybe it's something to do with my changing the name, and I have to go fix some namespace or something. Yeah. See my web. So I got to take this and go Control Shift F, and then we're going to change place in files everywhere that says Web UI. Oops. We're going to replace with UNL Web. And place all. See how much that breaks anything. If that undoes any of my problems. Any of my bugs go away. That's really the only thing I did was change the name of the web, the page. Let's see if this will work now. So any reference to UNL Web, UNL Web UI. Project is configured to use SSL. To avoid SSL warnings in the browser, you can choose to trust the signed certificate the core is generated. Would you trust the... I'm going to say yes. I don't know if this is going to work though, because you usually have to do something kind of... You have to have like admin permissions to do this. Windows cannot validate the certificate is actually from localhost. You should confirm its origin by contacting localhost. The following number will assist you in this process. If you install the root certificate, Windows will automatically trust and certify issues by the CA. Installing a certificate with an unconfirmed number is a security risk. If you click yes, you acknowledge this risk. Yes. Okay. Are we almost there then? Is it actually going to run? It's thinking about it. Got it. I don't know why that came up. So, hello world did not happen. Interesting. Let's start it without debugging. Oh my gosh, localhost is fine. Leave me alone. Oh, God. It's not going to let me run this. What the heck, man? How come his didn't have a permission issue? Ah, there it goes. All right, so third time's a charm. We got it. Woohoo! We have an app running. Yay! Woohoo! we have contact, folks. We have our first ever Blazor. I didn't even code any of this.
Blazor
But
project. We have Hello World. We have our counter, which we can start clicking on, and when we do, it starts increasing the value. And then we have the weather app, which, if you notice, let's go back to it. Notice it says loading. Watch real quick. It says loading, and then it loads the page. But wait a minute. If we go back to the weather page, let's move this off for a minute. Go to weather. There is no attribute at the top here. It says attribute stream rendering is true, but that's it. There is no attribute like the counter has for render mode. It's not render mode interactive, it's auto. It's not render mode interactive server or interactive WebAssembly. So what's this stream rendering? Well,
okay, so let's go look at what he's talking about. Let's just go see it and see if it's truly the same, because we know how things are slightly different sometimes. Yep, we got attribute stream rendering. Let's see what he says.
this page gets loaded and built on the server. So this is all server-side rendered, as is the home page. The home page is server-side rendered. But yet,
Interesting though, look. Mine has auth, because I did ask for auth, but it has register and login. So we got some extra stuff here because I asked for authorization. I do want that. So really what I have here is a start to my functional application, right? So I want to be able to allow people to log in. Well, there you go. I can have them log in. I can register them. I can log them in. I can have all that stuff, assuming this stuff is already functional. But still, there's use another service login. There are no external authentication services configured. See this article about setting up the ASP.NET application to support logging in via external services. But still, this is kind of cool. I've already got a baseline, so I'm able to function with just what it gives you, which is kind of nice. But obviously, I'm going to have to make it work for my stuff, work for my data, my database, how to make all that stuff work, and then ultimately be able to pull and read off of that stuff. But still, it's kind of cool. I don't know what these temperatures are. I gather it's interesting. It has time for future, and it's got future dates. I don't think we're ever going to see 44 degrees. It's not going to be sweltering tomorrow, which I'm not sure why 44 degrees Fahrenheit is sweltering while 107 is chilly. So, or 25 degrees is scorching, as is 84. So yeah, okay, so this is pretty much just a bunch of nonsense data, but still, it's kind of funny how they did that.
the weather page changes over time. So we get the loading first, and then it has the weather in there. How'd that happen? Well, what happened was when the page was built on the server and compiled, we come down here and we have an await. Now this is an await task.delay, just to put a delay in here so you can see that loading page.
Oh,
It's just a simulation or a demo. So, actually we can probably increase that over to make like 2 seconds, something like that, make it easier to see. But what happens is, because there's an await, the page gets rendered as if it's null to begin with. So we have a loading dialog. And then, because we're doing stream rendering, it will get the new values when they're done, and it will inject them just in the spot, in that component's space, which means that it will not disrupt the rest of the page. It's not a full page reload, it's just reloading that component when there are new values to put in there. It's a lot like a client-side application, but there's not quite the same interactivity. So this allows for a much more flexible application that feels like a client-side application, but it's fully server-side. And it's doing very, very little work on the client, and it's not opening a full connection back to the client. Now I want to demonstrate this just to kind of show off.
I do
how
kind of like
this-
the way he goes over a little bit. I mean, it's a little redundant because he's saying kind of the same thing over and over, in that he's saying this is coming from the server, this is coming from the server, it's definitely not coming from the client. Now we're going to demo it. So, okay, I get it. You know, I get what it's trying to do, but we also know that from the fact that he said it was in the server solution. So, yeah.
Works and what's going on. So to start off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to our layout and go to the nav menu. So this is the navigation. And inside the navigation, I am going to make a mess. I'm going to say div with a style equals background color of white. All right. And then in this div, I'm going to put the counter, which notice I have intro to blazor.client.pages.counter. So I can shorten this if I put this using directive in my imports. So using.
Oh, okay, so if you do, so you have an imports folder for the Razor, and you can put those in there, and it just has it for everything. Oh, interesting. So you don't have to do imports everywhere. You could just do it in the imports folder. Huh. See, I didn't know that's how Razor worked. Okay. So my imports I don't need to have using statements of everything, because in C# typically you put your using statements at the top, but they're at the top of every page. So this might be a new functionality with the imports. And he was doing the nav menu. He's adding stuff. All right, well, I think I can.
And there's the link to the pages. I can get rid of then this. Okay, so with that, now notice that my server is referring to a component in the client. That's okay. But the reason I'm putting this counter here is because I want to show off the state. So let's hit no here and find out using, it's not, oh, we don't have, it's not using, it's using. If you don't spell things right, things don't work quite right.
Yeah, imagine that.
Let's run this again and see if we can get it to run. There we go. So now I got this really ugly counter in the middle. I put the background of white so you can see it. Otherwise, it takes the background of this purple and you can't see the words. So if I click the counter and I have a value of 10, right? And then I come over here to the weather page. Notice the value of 10 did not change, even though I loaded a different page. So I go to a different page, and first of all, this counter is different than that counter, so you can click this value and put it to 6. But notice that this did not get reloaded. This is because of what's called enhanced navigation. So enhanced navigation says that when I navigate to a new place, and notice that this nav bar is always going to be here, it's just this inner component that changes. When I go there, that it's going to just inject the component into this section, not refresh the entire page. This is something that server-side systems like PHP or MVC or Razor pages, they don't do. They reload the entire page every time you go somewhere new or update data. Well, with the stream rendering and enhanced navigation, that's not the case. We can render just the component that changes so that it's not a full page refresh when we go somewhere new.
Okay, so basically what it sounds like when I'm going through to, it kind of explains me what this is. This here is a component, this whole stuff. And then these are just you telling it to load a different component. So you're basically, it's a single page, right? So it's all one page, but this is a server component and this is not. So everything else, So if you were to put something over here as a separate component, much like he did with counter, he put this counter component in this page. Well, that's not what it's changing. It's changing this component. So it didn't care that you had another component over here. So any component you stick outside of this component area is going to stay as is until something else calls it and tries to change it, which is interesting. It's cool. All right. I mean, to me,
So that's one benefit.
not everybody sees what I see is interesting.
But then this also helps with the stream rendering, helps with this weather component, because notice that it says loading and that changes just this component, not the counter value.
And that's what I was saying. Okay, so I do like this video, but he's spending a lot of time kind of reiterating the same thing. So let's see if we can skip ahead a little bit. Let's move on to something new here.
Now, I would recommend not doing that, because this interactivity is, as you can see, it really changes how your application works, even if you are just fully server-side rendered. So if we forget for a minute that we want to do Blazor server, Blazor WebAssembly, and just say, hey, we want to do server-side rendering, we can take out JavaScript. Well, you could, but then when you go to the weather page, well, it's a full page refresh, and your updates have to wait until that asynchronous call is done before they load the data. So I would recommend against doing that. Keep that JavaScript in there, and then you get the enhanced navigation out of the box, and whenever you want it, you can also have stream rendering, so that now your components update cleanly, the whole page doesn't have to refresh, and you can see the loading screen. Let's just update our counter to 5 and go to weather. Notice the loading, and then it loads. So we can go right to the loading page. We can come back, go right to the loading page, go right back. We can go to the loading page, and it loads the data when it's done. And it doesn't refresh the rest of our page.
Yeah, see, we're still
So
talking about the same thing.
Put an attribute on here. And I'm going to say the render mode is, and I recommend saying auto.
So are we creating a new page? Demo Razor, or is he just doing a demo? Is there a different thing here? Yeah, he put it under counter. So yeah, all right, let's do a new page. Add new item. There's a razor component. Is that for, I probably I skipped too far. Let's see.
You can just, Control Shift A and call it something.razor. So demo.razor. And there's your new component. And then you can utilize this component. Let's just put a paragraph. Hello, everybody. Okay, and then you can just, pop that component.
I'm going to keep it as demo for now.
Page, and we're come down here and say demo. And now you can have that demo component on our page. And right now it's server-side rendered. So it's not even being rendered.
Oops, did I put it on the client side? I did. Put it on the wrong client side. I was supposed to put it up here. It's under components. Did you just throw it in the generic pages? Yeah. Just throw it in pages. Okay, so let's take my demo. Drag it up here, put it in. Oops. There we go.
So really cool stuff there. When it comes to creating new components, you get to choose, but if you're going to have a component that might be WebAssembly or Auto, I would encourage you to create the component in your client project. So you can just, Control Shift A and call it something.razor. So demo.razor. And there's your new component. And
oh, it wasn't a client. He did put in client. What the heck? I don't know. I could have sworn he put that in the other location. It's moving things all around.
And then you can utilize this component. Let's just put a paragraph. Hello, everybody. Okay, and then you can just, pop that component wherever you want. So let's go to the home page, and we're come down here and say demo. And now you have that demo component on our page, and right now it's server-side rendered.
So he stuck it into his page. Where did he stick it at, though? Home.razor. Where's home.razor? Now I'm gonna have to go do all the stuff in React next, but I want to get like a basic app, basic stuff running. I'm using all the stuff they just fed us. I'm sticking in. I'm sticking in all the stuff you're gonna have highlight. I'll eventually start changing titles and rearranging it. But first, let's just get the object of our mold. It's kind of like, when you're going to make a rubber band ball, you got to get those first rubber bands tied together into the ball. And then we'll just start wrapping more bands on it until it becomes a nice, full, bouncy rubber ball. And we can just go demo. Oh, but then what? I have to go do this imports, I guess. Because I did it on the home.razor, and did he put that somewhere? Did he put it somewhere to make that?
WebAssembly or Auto, I would encourage you to create the components in your client project. So you can just, Control-Shift-A and call it something.razor. So demo.razor, and there's your new component. And then you can utilize this component. Let's just put a paragraph. Hello, everybody. Okay, and then you can just, pop that component wherever you want. So let's go to the home page, and we're come down here and say demo.
Yeah, he did demo. Mine didn't do demo. Now, why? I don't know. Why? Mine did this demo. I mean, this might work because I just don't have it importing unlweb.client.pages. But he doesn't have any other declarations in here. So unless it's in this imports thing, I don't know. Now it could be that he stopped his app. Maybe there's certain things that can't happen if you don't stop your app. Let's see. Because sometimes you can't create things and expect them to work if you don't. UNL web components, UNL web client, and it could even be that it couldn't reference it. Let's go home. Why did that not work? Found markup element with unexpected name demo. If this intended to be a component, add at using sign. Yeah, so I'm going to have to do an at using. unl.client.pages.demo. So if I go at using, take this thing. Not sure why it didn't do it, but we'll go here and we'll go try doing it on the imports. What the heck? And then let's try running it.
And now you have that demo component on our page, and right now it's server-side rendered. So it's not even being rendered with anything special. There's no stream rendering even. It's just putting the data there, and that works. And then down the road you can say, you know what, I kind of want to have.
Let's hold on. Mine is taking its own sweet time to load up here. Oh, it's behind me. Hello, competitors. Hello, competitors. Hello, competitors. Over there. Welcome to the Ultimate Neighborhood Ladder demo. Hello, competitors. Okay. Hey, wait. Why does it say demo? Is that actually supposed to say demo? Is demo actually text that's on here? Okay. Why my mouse ain't or things aren't clicking? I'm literally frozen up here. Wait a minute. What's going on? I have no help. No, literally, I can't do anything. I can do this. Don't know what just happened there. Okay, so is the word demo actually in here? Weird. So it showed demo, but it shows demo here. Stop it. Okay, I am way not functioning well here. Let's close this. That's not even here. It doesn't exist. It's not in the... Stop! I got something going on here that's not right. I don't know what just happened there, but okay. Do I even have, I don't even have control. I think my Visual Studio is wonky. It's gone wonky on me, man. Oh, press any key to continue. What? Wait, that still didn't clear. I even pressed any key, and it still didn't do anything. I'm still like log wonky. Okay, there it goes. All right, so why? Oh, the word demo is there. So I got demo, hello competitors. So I got demo, double demoing. I'm demolitioned. Okay. Yeah, okay. So we just have a lot of nonsense going on right now. But hey, we got a basic app running, so let's see. I still have hanging ups. Look, I can't even click on this now. I don't know what's going on. My computer is melting down. Hello? Hello, I say. Even after stopping, what is going on, man? All right, let's close this for the moment. All right, let's close this for the moment. All right, I'll close some stuff just to see if I can get back some modicum of functionality. I'm not sure what is going on at the moment.
Now you have that demo component on our page, and right now it's server-side rendered. So it's not even being rendered with anything special. There's no stream rendering even. It's just putting the data there, and that works. And then down the road, you can say, you know what, I kind of want to have some interactivity, so I'm going to put an attribute on here. And I'm going to say the render mode is, and I recommend saying auto all the time because this is the best of both worlds. Now,
I've got some serious problems going on. Like I've suddenly lost control again.
Okay? Whenever
I can't tap on anything.
You see someone that says, okay, it's always this, that's a problem. My recommendation is you start from here. So start auto, think about, you don't have to like build a component yet, but think about it as, by default, we're gonna do auto, but is there a reason to only do server or only do WebAssembly? And there can be. There are certain components that maybe you wanna have directly access the database that you say, you know what, they should be only server and they should live on the server side. But if the default probably should be auto,
this is not right.
Because that's the one that's
It's
most
different
likely
now.
going to give you the best benefits.
Render mode.
That's only for if you want interactivity. So if you want to make this into our own counter, we can say int current count equals 0. That's a private int. You can mark it as private. And in Blazor, if you're not familiar, your code behind, this code right here, which is technically a code behind, even though it's on the same page, it's still a code behind in the actual behind the scenes. The code behind, everything is private and yet can be accessed on the page. So that's the default you want to do. Only make it public if you're going to be
Okay, so something's weird with my computer right now. I can't switch windows by clicking on Windows. I have to. I can do stuff here right now. I click on this stuff, but when I try to go back to my other window, oh, is it working now? A second ago, it wasn't letting me switch between windows by clicking on them. I had to select them out of down here. I don't know. Something's off. I'm not sure if my computer's on the fritz. I mean, like, I have to reboot or something. But yeah, keep that in mind. I may have issues here. Wow, this guy really commented. It's funny because I only did this the once. Huh. Okay. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like the ones that really go all in on the compliments, like, oh, this is spectacular. You do all this. But hey, if you want to make this great, I have a sale for you. I see that a lot. So it's hard. I have a hard time. It's hard to know when somebody's being legit or when they're just setting you up for comments. You know, it's like, oh, thank you. Hey, yeah, no problem. I really appreciate what you're doing. Oh, by the way, it's like, oh, God, I walked right into that one. Anyway, it does happen. Trust me. Okay, so this is going to throw me off a little bit because you can see that he has this attribute. But when I go down here, remember I told you that it's doing things slightly different from what he's showing. So like when I went on to, is it counter? So we got render mode, interactive, auto, right? So on my demo though, I go render mode, interactive, auto is what I want. But notice how that's different from what he's got is attribute, render mode, interactive, auto. See, they've changed it slightly. And this is what's the new setup is how it sets up here. And it's fine, but when he does that, I got to remember that it's syntactically different than what just 8 months ago. He just did this back in November, which isn't that long. And here we are, June, and it's already changed.
Making a parameter in or out. Okay, so we're going to say paragraph, the current count is at current count, like so.
Hi, competitors. Let's say let's try to make it similar. So, I mean, you know, as we have, so we're going to go page. We're going to say current ladder has at current count competitors. And I don't know where he's getting current count from, because mine doesn't even like that word. It says, what is that? Oh, because he has a thing down here where he's saying private int current count equals 0.
So, and then we'll create a button down here. Button, we'll put class on it, btn dash outline dash primary. This is Bootstrap, by the way. And we'll close it off for now and say increase.
Let's see. Equals btn. I may have to install that. btn dash. Yeah, I don't have Bootstrap installed. Autoline dash primary. Go here, like that. What do I do? Quote, quote. Oh, nope. That's supposed to be part of button. And we'll call it increase. Increase. Join. Fun. There we go.
Count, like so, and then we'll create a private void increase count method.
Private void.
And we're going to say current
increase
count plus equal, start with
competitors.
1, like so. And then we will call this. So at on click equals,
Current
and this is a delegate. It's
count.
going to, if I don't put the open and close parentheses, it's not calling this as a method, it's calling it as or it's putting it in as a delegate that will then get called. Okay, so it's a little bit different, but the on click, we're going to increase the count, and we're render mode auto. That's really all we need to do, unless I forgot something, but I don't think I did. It's probably just going to look poor because of the fact that I didn't really do much styling. But so we now have our hello everybody, our current count is 0. Let's zoom in here a little bit more. And we're going to say,
Mine definitely takes longer to load than his. Now, he may be cutting that out. I mean, he may be video editing, accelerating it. If you don't talk during the part where it loads, you can make that go from 0 to, you can do it like in a second, right? You just advance the time. So my button doesn't even have a button. How come his has a button? My button has a button effect, but it doesn't have, there it is. It's got a button now. Didn't do anything though, so mine ain't working. Mine fails. What did I do wrong?
increase count, and there we go. There, our counter goes up every time I click it.
What do I do? So my on click. Oh, because I put the wrong competitors. I called it. Let's try that. Can I hit save? Is there anything you can do to make this live? And then if I refresh, will this refresh if I hit? Nope. It's not. Gotta reload it. Oh, I'm pretty sure I spelled that wrong too. I don't think it's outline dash primary. That's not, that can't possibly be right. I think it's supposed to be button something outline maybe? Outline dash primary? Gosh darn it. What does this thing do? What is that? Hot reload. Alt F10. Oh. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, well, at least it's more readable. It doesn't have a cool blue, but it's got an outline now. Now it's blue, but it's still not updating my thing. Increase competitors. What did I do? On click. Private void. Current count. Oh, his is obviously different from mine.
And we have count.
All right, let's see. Button outline primary. I got that. I have an outline. Increase count button. At current count is 0. We have current count equals 0.
Like so, and then we'll create a private void increase count method. And we're going to say current count plus equal, let's start with 1, like so. And
all right, so his is working, mine is not. Oh, he's got to also reference it.
then we will call this. So at on click equals, and this is a delegate.
So for one, his don't change colors. How come his void? Mine is yellow. His didn't. He must. Of course, that could have been November versus now, but my void looks like a method. His does not. But mine works. His works. Mine doesn't. So yeah. Current count is current count. Current ladder has at current count competitors. Button primary at on click equals increase competitors. Oh, look at that. This is not an equal sign. Woo! No. Now let's see what happens. Let's try this hot reload thing. Oh, is it still thinking about it? Changes cannot be applied. Unexpected error. Things blew up on you. Okay, well, I guess we're going to stop debugging then. And let's just run it again. Didn't like that. So much for hot reload. Thing is, I don't even think I hit save, so probably would have been good if I'd have saved. Because probably the thing I did save didn't work, and it was going to reload what I saved, not what I had. Alright, let's see what we got. Now we loaded. Hey, now we're working. We're just having people joining. The ladder's going up. Man, we've got great people, man. This could be the first 5 minutes of release. 35, 10. Oh, shit. We got 65 people who are running in this ladder, all in the first 10 seconds. Woo, I am so famous now. Okay. Let's go on to the next thing.
This is going to, if I don't put the open and close parentheses, it's not calling this as a method, it's calling it or it's putting it in as a delegate that will then get called. Okay, so it's a little bit different, but the on click, we're going to increase the count, and we're render mode auto. That's really all we need to do, unless I forgot something, but I don't think I did. It's probably just going to look poor because of the fact that I didn't really do much styling. But so we now have our hello everybody, our current count is 0. Let's zoom in here a little bit more. And we're going to say increase count, and there we go. There, our counter goes up every time I click it. And we have our own little counter component. We've added that auto render mode so that this can now be changed for right now. It's be server, and it's going to download the background, which we already downloaded, and now it's going to be WebAssembly the next time it runs. So really cool stuff there. Let's go through now. I want to talk through the various parts because we cover this in the course, but again, I try to cover a lot of stuff for free because I'm not about just the, here's a tip.
I'm gonna have to check out his course. I do like that he's teaching stuff here. I do feel like there's a little bit of repetitiveness, but that goes with every class to some extent. I don't know how much he charges for his class. If it's, within my budget, I might do it. Because again, I'm just trying to get all of the above. I want to get all the above. I'm building a full stack of new skills for me. I've been doing framework, C#, SQL Server. I need a job. And everybody who wants those things also wants React and or Blazor, Angular, Node.js, GraphQL, all things that a couple of those things, all those things I've touched on now. But now I got to start building that up into my mind so that I can go in and go, yeah, I can do this and that. And I'm learning it, figuring it out. And I just need to, be able to sell that. And that's what part of the streaming is all about, showing that I'm picking this stuff up and learning it. And ultimately, I will there's a lot of different tools out there. Got to pick some, but at the same time, you got to give yourself some options, right? So if you know anybody looking for a developer who wants to do this stuff, who really wants to learn and use these new techs, let them know, man. I'm right here, looking for opportunity to get back in and start contributing my newfound skills, and hopefully eventually be able to do more with them. I've always been a creative person. I love to make things new and get in there and start developing new stuff. So
Easier now, buy the full stuff. Let's cover the full stuff because I think it's important that you understand this when you're working with Blazor. So the start of any application is program.cs. This is where the start happens. And we have a typical program.cs with our services first, and then we have our use static files, use anti-forgery. This is something newer that what it does is when you create a form, it's going to create a hidden field on that form that has the a key in there. It's a very long string, and it's hidden, and it'll get posted back with the form. And this just proves that the user went through the form on your page and didn't just try to hit the API directly. So anti-forge is a great thing. It's built right into edit forms. So if you're using the Blazor edit form, it's built right in. You don't have to do anything. If you use a form and turn it into a Blazor form, then you have to add the anti-forgery token, which is very easy to do. Okay, now app.map razor components, it starts at app. So under components, you'll see the app.razor. This again is your entire page. This is your actual HTML document, and the only one you'll see here. The rest is when you need partial things you put typically in this spot right here.
So it's a lot like React. You have an app component. You don't do a lot with the app component, but it kind of sets everything up. Now you can't put stuff in the app component. It's just going to be there for everybody, everything, all the time, right? It's not going to be as dynamic. You're better off having the app component that references your subcomponents, and then they can be changed, updated, tweaked as you go and fly through. It's going to function. So
Now,
it's similar.
Once you've got the components, since we said auto, It's going to add interactive server render mode, which is Blazor server. It's going to add interactive WebAssembly render mode.
We're back on program, which is, it's interesting though, you got app.razor, which is up here, but you also got program.cs, which is down here. So they're actually, you got two program.cs's. App.razor is just in the same one.
Which is WebAssembly, and that's going to add additional assemblies, which is our client project. Now, it says type of counter.assembly. What that's doing is it's saying, hey, I just need to know some file, some thing in that namespace. So it knows that counter is there, so it's going to call that, but it's actually getting the assembly of counter, which means the entire project. So everything in there, including demo, will get pulled in.
It's kind of interesting because like mine by default, it picked UNL client.imports. Imports does not exist in the namespace UNL client. Are you missing an assembly reference? That's kind of weird. Why is it looking at imports? Because really, there is no imports. Oh, there is an imports. There is an imports in client. How come underscore imports? Weird. I mean, I could do the same thing they did, just change it to type of counter. But I'm curious why underscore imports doesn't work. And I wouldn't call it counter anyway, because it's not one I want to use. I like imports. They both have an imports, which is interesting. But why does it say imports doesn't exist? Huh. Interesting. I mean, it's functional, which is also interesting. It's not... Oh, now it works. What the heck? It wasn't there a second ago. It was underscore. Okay.
You could also say type of and reference the imports.razor file instead, and that would work.
See.
Okay, so that brings in the entire assembly, so everything gets mapped properly for our.
Okay, so that's good to know. I guess I didn't know that. You're just the assembly is everything that is included with that application or that piece. So you're referencing a piece, and it gives you everything that has that piece in it
for our routing. Okay, so that's all there is to starting up your project. Then we go to app.razor. That's where all of our actual HTML document is, which means if you wanted to add some more meta information, which you probably should, you would go there, probably. There is this head outlet here, which allows us to put more head content on a per component basis.
Hold on a second. I might have a brief meeting. Brief, like 5-minute brief at 1. And I gotta check to make sure. Possible, not really a job. Contracting person wants to talk to me. What do you want to do with your life? What do you want to do with your life? How can I possibly help you find something, help you do that with your life? Well, I'd like to win the lotto. Can you help me win the lotto? But if not, how about a job? Can you help me get a job? The job I can help you with. You're a contractor, right? Well, maybe he'll, maybe. What is today? Thursday. Oh, okay. So I probably don't have a Thursday. I probably don't have a meeting. I guess I can meet with this person tomorrow. Let's say, I don't know. Now this is Pacific time. Okay. So yesterday I went running and had my phone in my, you have the like the running the spandex shorts, and they have a pocket. Some of them. Apparently, that's not a very good pocket. I jumped over the back end of one of those portable basketball hoops, and my phone just went whoosh, flew right out of my pocket, bam, right on the concrete sidewalk. Got a nice little chip in the case, but luckily, no real damage. Nothing happened to the phone, so the phone survived. But boy, when it flew out of my pocket, I was like, no. Turned around, and my phone, which is a foldable, see, popped out. It was open. It had impacted, and it was sitting on the ground like this. And I was like, oh no. And I went and looked, and nope, no worse for wear. Phone didn't even. Got a nice little, like I said, nice little divot in the corner. I've dropped it a couple times, minor little drops, usually out of my pocket, onto the floor or something. Sometimes onto concrete, sometimes onto pavement, but ultimately it's only been dropped a couple times. But so far so good. So Galaxy Z Fold, holding up. All right. Okay, so now we got to get back to task. What's next in the grand scheme of things? All right. I need. Let's go see what he's got going next for us.
That allows us to do things like change the title or to change other meta information like the description on a per page basis, which is very, very good for search engine optimization, for when you have a page you want to be shareable that's going to show up nice on, say, Facebook or Twitter or in Google search results or whatever else, to show up nicely with a nice image and a nice description and a nice title. That's where you would set that all up, is on the per page component, most likely. So we have our routes. We look at routes.razor. We'll see that we have our routing and how to the found context and the routing. The one thing that's important to note with this new Blazor web type is we have this thing called found. This is a little bit legacy in the fact that we only use found now in the new Blazor web app. There is a tag called not found. And we used to use this in the previous Blazors to put our 404 pages. To say, hey, page not found. We can still do that in the standalone Blazor WebAssembly project, but we don't do it here. In fact, this is not used at all in our new Blazor web app.
Okay, so you can see, again, changes. For one, mine is showing red lines. I don't know why. It's just being that way right now. Maybe because I have this running, who knows. But you can see that this is the default layout of how mine came out when it built the project, and this is how his came out. We both just built the project. He built his at the beginning of this. I built mine. I clicked it right before this started, and it was the same basic settings. And you can see that I've got other things going. Now, I did set up authorization. Therefore, I got not authorized being in the middle. His does not have that. And I got a couple of authorization lines. So these things are all basically, his is just found with the route view, route data, all that. My route data is part of my authorized route view. So instead of just route view, it's authorized route view, and I have an extra line on the inside. His has got focus navigate. Mine doesn't have a navigate, so it's probably dependent on whether or not a person is actually authorized or not authorized. So we could redirect them to log in the event that we want to do something beyond just the basic page.
You would create an actual 404 page, not create a Razor component like that and you don't put there for not found. Okay, so just kind of a quick note there. Now, when it comes to our layout, we have our main layout, and this is the typical structure. This is pretty much the same as it has always been, as is the navigation menu. It's pretty similar. This is where the navigation menu gets set up for putting navigations on pages, which if you notice in the main layout, we have nav menu. So that's the component, which is the navigation menu. And if you want to get rid of the navigation, you would just delete this section, and there you go. There's the rest. Your body goes right here. So again, there's an about bar at the top. You can get rid of that by deleting these three lines, lines 9 to 11, because...
Is there? Well, there is an about. Oh. What does it take you to? It just takes you to ASP.NET documentation. UNL web here. What does this take you to? It clicks, but doesn't go anywhere. Let's see. So this is your navigation, I would imagine, right? So what happens if you remove navigation? Do you remove all of this stuff and it just loads this? What does navigation even do? Say we got navlink match, true home, counter, weather, auth required. Yeah, that's basically what we do. We're basically removing everything that's on the left. Huh. Let's go into auth required. Let's go see what this does. Let's go say register as a new user. I don't know what this is going to do. Because I don't even have this authentication service going, so it might not even be doing anything. Passwords must have, oh, okay, a little too simple. Thinking about it, I don't have any idea what it's actually authenticating with. Database operation failed at processing the request. Cannot open database, ASP.NET, UNL, web, blah, blah, blah. Requested by login failure for user. So I don't actually have a database set up for this. So I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to be setting that up. There are migrations that have not been applied to the following databases. Application DB context, application migrations. In Visual Studio, you can use the package manager console to apply pending migrations to the database. You can apply pending migrations from a command line or your project directory. So I probably have to learn how to do that. That doesn't work yet. It makes sense. I mean, why would it, right? I haven't done anything with it.
That's just part of the main layout that you can change. You have full control over how this works. Now, we have pages here. We have error, home, and weather. You won't have all of these if you're using the template without the sample data. But note that everything in Blazor is a component. So even though we have an app page here, we could still use the home component somewhere else, kind of like this. Our demo is being used. And conversely, our components can be pages, but they don't have to be. This demo component right here, there is no page directive at the top. So you can't access it by doing our URL/demo. In order to do that, you'd have to add that page directive at the top. Page, and then say /demo or /demo/my-demo, and that'd be the full path. Whatever you choose here, you can have more than one of these, and you can even pass in data or or have default data.
You know, that's the first time I've seen the app page directive explained. Ever. You're basically just setting up the URL for that. I don't know why. It never really occurred to me how that functions. But you're basically saying what it is from the root directory, what you have to path in there. You got to be a little careful with that because, you know, obviously you could accidentally put two things with the same page directive. Typically, it'd be the name of the file. But it's still interesting that you have, you can put that in there. So home is just going to be anything / just home. It's the base thing. And then after that, you just put in /blah/blah/blah. But it's interesting. I've seen the app page directive on many things, and it never really occurred to me. I just thought maybe it was just identifying it as a page, not necessarily that was how you navigate to the page.
On those routes as well. So lots of cool stuff you can do there with your routing. And then we have our app settings.json in the main project. This is where
the most interesting part of that is that you can have multiple app page things. So you could actually have, like, maybe you're using the same page. You use the same page in the event that you're navigating to a client, for example. You know, maybe you can get there from maybe sign up, and maybe you get there from log in. You know, both of them can have /user, you know, whatever. They can have that path. You're logging in or you're signing in, but either way you end up at user. I don't know, something like that.
Put things like connection
That may not be the
strings or
best
other
example,
secret
but
information. And yes, we still have the concept of user secrets. So you right click in your project and say manage user secrets. This JSON file, which is not part of your project, it's only for your local machine, but it will override with some app settings.json. That is the place to put anything for local testing or local development. So I encourage you to use that. And just note that's in the server project. It is not accessible from the client project. And this is where things can get a little tricky. Let's figure this out. Okay, so I'm going to inject the I configuration. I'll call it config. Now, in app settings.json, let's put a new node where I say demo info, and where I say this is our demo info from app settings.json. Okay, so in our code now, we're going to have a private string demo info. We'll call it the same thing. We'll start off with an empty string.
Well, let's go ahead and do what he's doing. Let's just do it for practice, shall we? So we're going to go here. He's putting this underneath his counter. And we will go private string demo info equals, yeah, I know, I got to go do the other piece that he just talked about. But first things first, man. I'm backwards.
And just note, that's in the server project.
App settings.
It is not accessible from the client project. And this is where things can get a little tricky. Let's figure this out, okay? So I'm going to inject.
All right, so we're going to go, he's doing this in his demo razor in the client app, which is where I was.
The I configuration. I'll call it config. Now, in app settings.json, let's put a new node where I say demo info, and where I say this is our demo.
And then we're going to go over to app settings.json, and we're going to be right where he is under the allow edits. We're going to go equals demo info for demo. Competitor info. This is our ladder demo. Period.
Demo info from app settings.json. Okay, so in our code now, we're going to have a private string demo info. We'll call it the same thing. We'll start off with an empty string. And we're going to have a new.
Now we got to go back over to my demo and inject. He actually injected this as an object.
Paragraph.
And he's putting in a new paragraph under hello competitors.
It's going to say at demo info.
Oops.
And I'm going to create a protected override on initialized. I'll use the.
All right, so he's creating something else here. He's going protected override void on initialized, and it's going to be based on initialized.
On initialized, since there's no async call being made. And this will get loaded once the page is loaded. So I'm going to say that demo info equals config.get value, and I believe by default it's string, but let's just do it anyways. And we're going to say demo info. I believe that's the case that we use. Let's just look at it to be consistent. It
Nope. Okay, so I got to go back here, and what did I use? Competitor info. I'm going to go back here, and this is what this is. Oops.
This. Okay, so that's going to put the string from the app settings.json file into this string. Which gets displayed on the page. This is on the home page. let's launch this.
Let's do.
So when this launches, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think yours is going to
Okay,
load
well, it
first.
says-
Okay, he's got a really fast computer, or he's actually got. I mean, it could be. I mean, my computer's not terrible, but I mean, it is a tablet. Oh, and mine has a break. Mine has a broken piece. I don't know what that is. What the heck? Failed to load configuration from file get repos. Wait, what? Who asked you to get anything from get repos? What's that guy do with the price of chickens in China? Bar builder? What? What? Nobody asked for any of that. What's the... I don't know what that's all about, man. Failed to load configuration from file app settings. Okay, so I did something wrong in my app settings file. Oh, there's supposed to be a comma here.
We're going to say demo info.
And I'm also...
And we're going to say, this is our demo info from app settings.json. Okay.
Are we better now? I think we might be better now. But I do need to figure out how to stop this. I don't know how to stop any of this. Yes. See. Okay. Oh, what just happened? What just happened? Explain to me what just happened. That was not part of the plan. It's been threatening to break on me all day. All right, let's try this again. It says it's ready. Skipping, blah, blah, blah. We're running. This guy came up. What else we got? Stuff still happening. Lots of stuff still happening. Still thinking about it. Oh, we're here. This is our Lado demo from appsettings.json. Hey, it disappeared though. All I did was move my mouse and it vanished. What? That was weird. I refreshed and it came back. Oh, and then it disappeared again. What is going on, man?
So in our code now, this is on the home page. Let's launch this.
So let's see. Does it disappear for him?
When this launches, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think it's going to show like it did, but then it's going to disappear.
Okay. Well, it says this is our demo info. Wait, what happened?
Yeah, that's what I just
We
said.
had more information on this page. Let's launch it again and see this. Now, we're in development mode, which it turns off a lot of things. But if you watch, this is our demo info from appsettings.json, and it goes away.
Yeah, I noticed
So
that. That was interesting.
What happened?
I don't know. What happened?
Well,
Tell me about it. Tell me,
The
man.
component initially rendered as Blazor server. And like I said, because we're in development mode with Visual Studio, that kind of changes and tweaks how a lot of these settings work. So it's not going to save our WebAssembly information, not going to cache that between calls. Otherwise, what would happen is it'd be very hard to debug because we'd be using the previous version of the component every time we made a change. And so it's going to always refresh that cache and start us over at Blazor server and then launch Blazor WebAssembly after it's downloaded. So the page initially, the component initially for demo launched with the the Blazor server version, and Blazor server has access to the configuration. However, Blazor WebAssembly does not. So when it switched over from one to the other, it reloaded the page and wiped out this value. Now, it it handled it gracefully because there's technically odd configuration on the client side as well. It's just that we don't have anything in that configuration because we're not storing anything sensitive there. Therefore, we didn't put any appsetting.json file in the project.
Interesting. Wow.
But because of that transition, it ends up with an empty value and it overwrites what was in there because we switched over to the Blazor WebAssembly mode. So you see something quirky like that, it's probably because you're rendering it in a way that the WebAssembly does not have access to something that the server does. Let's change this interactive mode over to server.
Okay, let's do that. So we're going to go back over to, I believe it's my demo, active mode.
And now let's run this.
He's going to run it again. I didn't like that. All right, how did he do it? Oh, he did it using an attribute. Can I do render mode? Interesting. Interactive server render mode? Because I tried server, it didn't like server. Huh. That don't work. So interactive auto. I'll let it be null. But it still doesn't answer this problem. So render mode can't be, huh. We can go interactive server render mode. Does that do anything? Now it's like doubly bad. I got the same error twice. It's like it doesn't like it either way. So what does it expect? Okay, I don't understand why sometimes this shows stuff and other times it doesn't. See, now it's not showing anything. Is it because this is on there? Alright, so if I go interactive server, what if I just do that? Doesn't like that either. Huh. Something's weird. Got distracted by Will Wheaton's by Will Wheaton thing. All right, back to it. I gotta go see how to set this because I'm set render mode to server. All right, let's see what something, it's not taking it. I don't know what it's expecting. Interactive server, but that's fine, but it doesn't show me enable support for interactive render modes. Apply render mode. Render mode equals render mode dot interactive server, but that's under dialog. Oh, well, that is an @ sign though. @ render mode interactive server. I don't know why it's not taking it. It's not working, folks. Or maybe it is. I don't understand. Hey, but look, it stayed. It didn't go away. Which I'm pretty sure I knew that was going to be what he decided. What was the end result? But
component again.
It kept saying no, and it would error, and now all of a sudden it
we'll
works.
See that it maintains this our demo info.
It's like the second thing that aired out, and then when I tried again, it just worked.
This is still here, and you know, we can play around with changing the count. It's still here. It's not going away. If we change this again from server to WebAssembly,
I bet it doesn't show up at all.
and launch it, we'll see that we never have
Yep.
access to this data. So we don't see the value.
Ah.
Well, actually, we do see it temporarily. Actually, we refresh this again, it shows up and then it goes away. Well, why is that? Because the first time it renders is actually rendering on the server, even though it is WebAssembly. So there's a little bit of a difference there. It's a little, a little frustrating there. But at the same time, what it's showing us is we don't have access to it all the time. And in fact, if there is something that, let's change it back to auto. If there is something that we can only access on the server that doesn't have a equivalent on the client,
So it's
then
interesting, all this stuff. I mean, he kind of got you going. Set up an app. That's what he did. Kind of got some basic stuff in there. Didn't really do too much. Obviously, I'd like to do more with it, build more to it. But this kind of gets me going, right? So now I just need to do a Razor equivalent, a startup, get the project going, get my stuff in there. Some basics for my ladder. And trust me, we're going to continue to make this better. We're going to add more. We're going to get a little bit more cleaner. Eventually, it's going to have to start being off on my own design. And if I don't know how to do something, I'll have to figure it out. But ultimately, this is going to be a pretty cool project, I think. And then eventually, hopefully I can do side by side. I'll have one here, and then I'll just code one, make it work. Code the other, make it work. But right now, I'm just trying to get the two parts going, right? Get a Blazor. Blazor uses Razor pages to run, and we'll get that going too.
it will crash. So we need to know that because iConfiguration has an equivalent on the client, but not everything does. For example, if we talk directly to SQL Server, well, that'll work on a server, but not on WebAssembly, and it will crash. That, I think, is probably one of the biggest gotchas when working with these systems is when you use auto, you have to remember that it's going to be WebAssembly, therefore it cannot have direct access to a database, it cannot have direct access to your secrets, it cannot have direct access to your app settings. Okay, so now you've seen that, let's close all these tabs and go look at the client project. We have the server project, and that's, pretty simple. Then we have the client project, and in here we have our pages, which we've seen. And by the way, the naming is not great inside for our folders. We have components up here with layouts and pages, and then we have just pages down here, but they're not all pages, they're sometimes components. So you might want to change the naming a little bit. It's not going to hurt anything. You don't have to have a specific, call it, you don't have to call it pages, have anything inside there. You can call it whatever you want.
I think he's just calling out that these things on here aren't all pages, because if he likes to see, oh, those are all pages. Well, actually, nope, that one's not a page. This is, so your demo page is not a demo page until you make it a page. So you could call it, your pages can be components, and your pages can be components, but your components cannot be pages unless you turn them into pages. You have to make them pages. But a page is automatically a component. They're all components. But if you put the app page identifier at the top, it becomes a possible URL root and endpoint.
And then it'll be picked up just fine. But just know that the name is not great. But we still have our imports.razor. Notice this is a different imports.razor than we have up here in our server project. So this is different. So you can have both. This one down here in the client project applies to the client project. So if you have a using directive in the client project, it won't be applied in the server project.
Obviously.
Okay. We also have a program.cs, which is very simple, but we do have one. Why is that? Well, because there are times when this will be launched independently. In fact, if you run a component as WebAssembly, this is what will be used. So this is what's going to be used for running our fully client-side C# stuff. So just note that will be important to understand. You might have to tweak this file as opposed to the other program.cs file if there are certain things you'll need for WebAssembly.
So my
Okay.
thought is he's basically saying that if you create a client-side only page that you actually route to, it would probably use the program.cs. But it's all single page, so wouldn't you still have something both? I would imagine if it's just WebAssembly only, it's going to load. If you have like a render mode WebAssembly, it's probably going to just use the WebAssembly program.cs. That's all I can guess.
Finally, there is a www root in both of these projects. So in this www root, we do have an app settings.json, which this is for the client side, and it just has logging information. Again, you should not put anything sensitive here. The client will be able to read all of this text. So do not put connection strings, do not put secrets, because WebAssembly should not have direct access to a database anyway. You need to talk through an API, which this server project is kind of an API. Okay, so in our server project, we have a www root, and this is where we have the bootstrap. By the way, the template brings down a version of bootstrap and does it locally. That's version 5.1.0. In the course, I showed how to upgrade, but basically, you just go to your app.razor and replace this line right here with a call to a CDN with the bootstrap file. It will change the size from I think 160 kilobytes down to like 37 kilobytes to go with a CDN, and it will make your version be the latest version, which time of this recording is 5.3 point something. So improvements all around, and yes, not for the most part a breaking change. And then also note that we have our app.css. This is our site-wide CSS document. You can make changes here or just wipe out Microsoft defaults. We do have a favicon for the application, which right now is the default Blazor favicon. You could change that if you wanted to. And for a production app, you definitely should. But anything else that's like a standard file that's a static file, like images or JavaScript files or anything else like that, you can put in this www root folder.
Kind of funny, you can kind of edit this.
Now, speaking of JavaScript, I do want to point out some people don't realize Blazor has full access to JavaScript, and JavaScript can have full access to Blazor, meaning you can set up a component in Blazor that can talk to JavaScript, and you can call JavaScript and get data back out and put it into Blazor. So you have that two-way interaction, which means that you can use pretty much any JavaScript library or component out there with Blazor. So you're not saying I'm only going to use Blazor and I'm cutting off all JavaScript. No, you're saying I'm going to use Blazor, and if I want, I can use whatever JavaScript I want. So you're leaving that door open for whatever you want to do, whatever works best for your application.
Huh.
So I would just encourage you that if it's a interactivity with a screen where you're changing, manipulating things, maybe start with Blazor, because you already have something built in. A lot of times people overlook the current, built-in power because they find something flashy that does the same thing but adds more dependencies to your application that you really don't need. So I encourage you to figure out if you actually need those dependencies before you just go adding them like crazy. On the other hand, I would encourage you not to say, I'm never using JavaScript, because there might be a better option out there for certain circumstances than trying to reinvent the wheel. So it does
wonder,
interact really well with JavaScript.
what if I do
We covered
both?
it in the course. I'll probably cover it in a future video as well. But this is Blazor. This is Blazor with auto. It has server-side rendering. We've seen stream rendering.
I don't know how
We
well
have
it would
Blazor
work. I'd have
server,
to
we
try
have
something
Blazor
like that. It'd
assembly,
be
we
interesting to
have
do.
auto that transitions between server and WebAssembly. So lots of cool stuff. This
It'd be a
thing
weird
is very
website to have
powerful,
2 pages
very
of everything.
fast, and you can take your existing knowledge of C# and build out a user
So,
interface.
Okay, so that's
that
the end of
is-
that. That's my attempt to get the Blazor side of my app going. I do have it up. I did his thing, followed it, got a little idea. He gave me some feedback. I feel a little bit more comfortable with what Blazor is, what's going on. Granted, I'm not perfect, but I do understand the code pretty easily because that's me. I'm a C sharper. So it's not like a C sharpist, a C sharpenator. Anyway, I'm going to take a pause here and then we'll come back. When I come back, we'll do React.